Please subscribe to help you and your motorcycle perform better.
Dave Williams, editor, here with today's video, a tour of the Öhlins support trailer. Dave Moss and I were recently at the MotoAmerica round at Sonoma doing some filming, and we'll have those videos coming along in the ensuing weeks. Here we have a tour of the Öhlins trailer. It's pronounced Öhlins in Swedish, Öhlins, so you can use that as a bit of party trivia. It's because of all this work that Öhlins does at the track that we get such great suspension on our bikes.
I'm Brad with Öhlins USA. We're here at the MotoAmerica event at Sonoma. We're race support for all MotoAmerica events. We bring a 28-foot trailer and we work 5 technicians at every event. Got some pieces and parts out here for people to come look at, MotoGP stuff from, you know, a couple of years, 4 or 5 years ago, but still cool pieces. You can read about them and take a look at some stuff that you don't normally see. So,
is this stuff available to Superbike races?
No, this stuff would not be available to anybody. Only MotoGP.
Got it.
So, kind of...
This is just unobtainium.
Unobtainable, yes.
It's unobtainium for mortals.
Exactly.
If you're an alien, you're fine.
Exactly. So, yes. We'll never see this being like through ride, this being through ride. We don't see that at this. Now we do have a spec Superbike Fork that is homologated in the World Superbike level, is also legal here. Okay. So that's what most of our Superbike teams run. It's called an RVP 25 Superbike Fork and also an RSP 40 rear shock. So those are the Superbike pieces that are available if you are running a Superbike at MotoAmerica.
And we've been looking at those this morning and taking pictures between teams and how they've got very identical equipment. So now it's just a question of the engineering inside, which is where you guys come in for springs and valves and geometry and...
Correct. Yes, we're here. We have 10 contract teams, and then we'll work with anybody that's on our suspension. You come over to the trailer if you have questions or need changes, or if you've crashed and got damage. That's mainly what we're here for. Changes, fixes, things like that. We do some services here, but we'd like to have that done before we get to the racetrack. Just saying. Yeah, you need to have it ready when you pull it off the trailer as best you can. So we typically like to do that before the weekend, because especially with like this weekend being a short weekend, you don't have a lot of time for service.
Nope.
So
preparation is everything. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. So let's have a look inside.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on in. It's basically a mobile workshop. We've got everything we need in here, from laptops with our Moto spec, parts up here, steering damper, rear shocks, top out springs, any parts and pieces, and even down here with fork springs. Obviously we need things like nitrogen, oil, those sort of things. And then we get into things like our spring cabinets, which obviously we have to carry a lot of rear shock springs.
Now do you carry the same length? But obviously different rates.
No, we have to carry 2 different lengths because particular shocks use a shorter spring than others. So this would be the shorter 150 millimeter, and then if we go to the drawer right below it, there is our 160 millimeter springs. And even past that, these are our standard springs that you can buy straight from Öhlins. If we jump back here real quick, and these are actually the R springs. So these are perfectly rated from Sweden and scribed on top of the exact rate.
So huge quality control.
Huge quality control on these. $100 for those, a little over $100, $250 for this spring alone. So, but you get the exact rate you want. You know, we get guys, I want a 92.5 or I want a 97.5 or something in between what we normally offer. We can do that.
Right. So then on the equipment front, why don't you walk us through what you've got on the benches all the way down?
Yeah, so we'll start, I guess, up here with the vacuum filler, a very important tool of ours that we actually use a vacuum pump to pull the air out of the shock, and then when we flip it over to pressure, it puts the oil into the shock without any air. So with our TTX 36, it's very, very important that we use this machine. It's very, very difficult to bleed them by hand. Same thing with a steering damper. Now, as far as front forks are concerned, most of them either an open cartridge, or if it is a sealed cartridge, the way that we assemble it, it pressurizes. So we don't have to use this machine particularly on the front forks. Moving down, this is a shock stretch tool. So we can physically put a shock on here, turn the knob, you can see the ruler there, and we depress that top out spring so that we can accurately measure length of the shock and accurately measure preload on the shock.
Yep.
Moving down from there, spring compressor. This is the tool we would use to take the spring off of the shock. We've also got another one down at the other end there.
The nitrogen cylinder?
Nitrogen cylinder. Here is one. This is a little older version. I've got a newer version down there in front of my bench. Those are for pneumatic preload adjusters. So they have no oil in them. And basically what happens is with this can, we run somewhere around 20 bar of pressure, 300 PSI. We connect this into the preload adjuster. It'll separate a collar and we can turn it by hand. Once we disconnect this, it slaps back together and then it can't turn. The reason that they use the pneumatic preload adjuster compared to a hydraulic, if you were to have a failure on the hydraulic, it will release the oil and collapse. So in essence, lose the preload that you have on it. With the pneumatic adjuster, that's not possible. It locks into place and it has no oil, so there technically can't be a failure other than if we hook it up and an O-ring blows because of the pressure, which doesn't happen very often.
Right.
So it's just kind of a reliability thing when it comes to that.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially where that preload adjuster is on the shock and it just so happens the rear tire's right there. So.
Correct. Or an exhaust or anything of that nature.
Yep.
You know, past that, if we look, we have Shim Boxes. This is all of our shims for a TTX 36. We have multiple boxes of these, thickness and diameter, and then our clamp shims. So we have one box for rear shocks, and then we have two boxes for front forks. Other things, nitrogen filling gauges. This is what we actually use to put nitrogen into the shocks. So we have a hypodermic needle. If I can get it out of there. Underneath of this cap, hypodermic needle hooks up to a hose, then the gauge, and that's how we actually put nitrogen into the shock. The cap on the shock has a self-healing rubber, so once we pierce it, pull it back out, it seals itself back up. We just have to make sure that these needles are very sharp and don't have little burrs on the end, because that obviously can cut the rubber.
So at that point, what's the life cycle for you on a needle?
I mean, if you're careful, they can go months. Yeah. If you drop it, I mean, and I make it a habit to run my fingers across it to make sure that we don't have a burr. And as you can see, these are nothing more than a hypodermic needle that you can get at a local pharmacy. Yep. Now, they do look at you a little funny when you come in asking for needles, but
want what?
Yeah, I usually take the gauge with me and go, look, it's for work, you know. So anyway, but other than that, like floor vices, those are to hold the front forks. You can see we came up with an ingenious idea of using a motocross stand with a pan and then mounting the vise to it. And you know, we've put things in here like our pull-out oil drawers. So if we have a shock in here or something, we can let the oil dump into there. And past that, we can lean the forks up here, set the shock into this pan, which drains down into our oil bucket below. So this trailer was actually put together by me. It wasn't built by anybody as far as, hey, we need to shop. Right. In a trailer. It came with these cabinets you see up front, and then I purchased through the company all of these benches, all of these cabinets, you know, and these hold all of our tools. whether it's wrenches or screwdrivers, or you get down in the bottom, some of our bigger pieces, cartridge tools, oil level tools. There again, kind of a cool tool as far as setting an oil level. Most people are used to a syringe and pulling on it. We actually have a tool, because we have to push the damping rod down and hold it down to set the oil level. This pushes down, and as we push down on this, it sucks the oil up. So it's reverse. So you can hold down, you can hold down on the damping rod, push that down, and it sets itself. So
that's genius.
Yeah, it's a very cool tool. And even, these are some of our race product, or our race tools that most people don't normally see, in that when you purchase a cartridge tool from Öhlins, you get a steel cartridge tool. Well, these are aluminum, and as you can see on both sides, it has the castle nut. They're two different sizes depending on what cartridge. And then from there, we actually have a little, I don't know what you would call that, but that slides onto there, drops in, and then we can use our torque wrench to torque the cartridge in.
Perfect.
And it works on both ends.
Right.
So that's just kind of the cool little stuff that we get from Sweden from our race department to help our jobs go a little quicker, make it a little easier for everything. We have 10 contracts with teams here in the MotoAmerica paddock. So those 10 teams, Omega Motorsports, Hudson, Ridiculous, ADR, Bryce Prince, Ben Smith, Westby Racing, Yamaha Motor Corp, M4 Suzuki, and also Yoshimura Suzuki. So those are just the people that pay us to be at their beck and call, so to speak. Past that, like I said before, we're here for any racer on our product, and you can come up to our trailer at any time and talk to any of our 5 technicians to get support.
What's your saturation in each class in terms of product?
Okay, Superbike, we have 100% of the grid. Super Sport, we have 99% of the grid. Super Stock 1000, roughly about 60%. Twins Cup, probably around 40 to 50%. Twins is a little less, just simply because the bikes are a little older. But now that we have Super Sport and Superbike kind of sewed up, we're going to concentrate on the other classes to try to hopefully dominate. I mean,
sure.
That's why we're here, right? And that's why we have 5 technicians working here.
Excellent.
So,
thanks for your time. Thanks for the tour.
Absolutely.
It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Dave Moss can tune your suspension no matter where you are on the planet via his remote tuning service. Contact Dave on Facebook or by email, dave@davemosstuning.com.